All right, Stacy Harris is from Queensland Department of Agriculture and Fisheries, and she's going to talk to us about biosecurity priorities in the Pumicestone Passage. Now, just remember, you can look over that away.
Nice, thank you. That should be fine. Thank you very much for having me. Biosecurity Queensland's mission is to prevent the establishment of new invasive species in order to protect Queensland's human health, social amenity, economy and environment. So in other words, our role is to stop another lantana from happening and nipping it in the bud before it gets out. With limited resources, there's less than 20 of me in the state, we have to be really strategic on how we prioritise our execution. So there's 3 key areas where we concentrate our efforts. So we undertake preventative surveillance for high-risk species not known to be in Queensland. We look in targeted areas that is suitable habitat for certain pests, knowing that if we can detect it earlier, we have a higher chance of eradication. We take compliance and enforcement actions under biosecurity legislation to prevent the establishment of new pests in Queensland. So compliance actions include seizure of illegal species, infringement notices and prosecution. We conduct operations to eradicate high-risk priority invasive species, or I like to say we seek and destroy. Eradication requires a minimum of yearly surveillance, often involving emu parades in transects, trekking through the scrub, in historic areas and new areas. We use a fantastic mapping system that shows us where old sites have been found and upload where new detections are made. So currently there are 41 species identified as high priority invasive species for Biosecurity Queensland. This is a constantly changing list depending on new species being found and the ability to eradicate them. Priority is given to major pests that are pests overseas, are climatically suited to Queensland and have broad natural geographic ranges. We know where these species are likely to turn up, so we know where to go looking for them. Invasive plants and animals are listed as prohibited or restricted under the Biosecurity Act 2014. Prohibited matter has the potential to have significant impacts and are currently not present or known to be present in Queensland. Restricted matter is present in Queensland, is having adverse impacts and has a requirement to manage them and prevent their spread. So we're now going to look at a few species that are already in Queensland, our current eradication projects, and are on the doorstep of the Pumicestone Passage. Cacti is a top priority for Biosecurity Queensland. There is no cactus that is native to Australia. Cactus are extremely drought resistant and able to remain vigorous in hot, dry conditions. The spines are capable of causing injury to stock and humans. Everyone remembers the story of the invasion of the prickly pear in the 1900s, which invaded 24 million hectares, growing at a rate of 1 million hectares per year. We don't want this to happen again. So the cacti that I'm going to show you are specifically targeted as they have the potential to invade just like the prickly pear did. Each of these genera of cactus are weeds of national significance. So Opuntia, prickly pear is an Opuntia. There's a lot of different species that belong in the Opuntia genus that are all just as invasive as the prickly pear. This one is bunny ears cactus or Opuntia microdassus. This is one of the most commonly detected cactus that we find people illegally keeping or selling on online platforms or at the markets. The next genus is Cylindropuntia. So this is Hudson pear cactus or Cylindropuntia tunicata. It is the very worst cactus of them all. Native animals have been found dead in this cactus. Can you believe people want to buy and sell this stuff? It has reverse barbed hooks that require being taken out by a pair of pliers. The last genus is Austrocylindropuntia. This is Eve's pin cactus, or Ostrocylindropuntia subulata. So far, we've only detected this cactus being illegally grown in gardens. It has a high potential to become naturalised in Queensland, so we are working really hard to prevent it from ever getting established. For several years, we've been conducting a cacti compliance project aimed at managing the illegal selling of declared cacti in southeast Queensland. In the 2019 to 2020 financial year, this project resulted in the seizure of 1,673 cacti from 51 investigations, with 18 different species being detected. We are now in the business of issuing fines if you are caught or selling declared cacti. Some people think it's okay or even harmless to have one in a pot, but remember, the majority of new weed infestations started from a garden escapee. This image is where over 250 cacti plants were being sold on Gumtree. And this is not the biggest seizure either. The biggest was nearly 1,000, and it took me hours. So if you have one of these, you should come forward and you won't get in trouble. So the next eradication project is the Bidu Bush Eradication Project, which is one of the longest running eradication projects in Queensland and is something you should all be keeping a lookout for. Bidu is native to South Africa and is ideally suited to Queensland's magnificent coastline. It was introduced as a dune stabiliser because it's salt tolerant and it grows really big, really quick. Bidu is currently located from the New South Wales border to the southern tip of Fraser Island. Control began in the early 1980s, so we are 40 years into this eradication program where only isolated plants are found in the field today. Bidu bush surveillance is conducted twice yearly on foot and annually by helicopter. Bidu is distinguished by fine cobweb-like hairs on the new growth and small daisy-like flowers. Bidu flowers mostly in autumn, but it will flower all year round. Mature plants produce an attractive berry that's eaten and spread by birds. Seeds are also dispersed in fresh and salt water, making low-lying coastal areas particularly vulnerable to invasion. Seeds remain viable for up to 7 years, so every time we find a new plant, we have to revisit that site at least yearly for 10 years for proof of freedom. The uncontrolled spread of Bidu bush would lead to serious environmental impacts as well as cultural, social and economic costs. Where established, it outcompetes native vegetation, forming dense monocultures, limiting habitat for native fauna. Bidu bush would certainly make its home in the Pumicestone catchment area and something you should all be looking out for. The Mexican bean tree eradication project is another big project run by us. Mexican bean tree, or Cecropia, is native to tropical America. It is ideally suited to Queensland's subtropical rainforests. It was introduced to Queensland by gardening enthusiasts that saw it as a collector's plant. It is very fast growing, like most invasives, can grow up to 25 metres tall and reaching maturity in as little as 3 years. I like to describe it as a cross between a pawpaw and an umbrella tree. It is very large trees, which is why it was so attractive to gardening enthusiasts. Mexican bean trees are dioecious, which means they have a separate male and female plant. All species of Cecropia produce large numbers of seeds that are readily dispersed by a range of birds and fruit bats. When a Mexican bean tree is detected, we require a survey within 500 metres yearly for over 8 years for proof of freedom. 6 new trees were detected in the last financial year. The images on this slide of the 2 trees that were located last month in Karoi. The bottom image is of the male flower. We know there are more Mexican bean trees out there, we just haven't found them all yet. So there is little doubt that any Cecropia plants within subtropical rainforests of southeast Queensland will spread rapidly and invade suitable habitats nearby, again making it highly suitable to many areas of the Pumicestone catchment. The red-eared slider turtle is the only pest animal eradication program in the state. Red-eared slider turtles are an exotic freshwater turtle native to America. They are listed as one of the top 100 species internationally and could become the next cane toad. The only known naturalised population in Queensland is in southeast Queensland, so not far away. Rest are very adaptable to all of Australia's waterways and are distributed widely via the illegal pet trade. Rest are aggressive and will outcompete native turtles and fish species for food and space. They even carry diseases that will threaten our native turtles. As you can see, rest have a distinctive red stripe behind their eye and they retract their head, unlike our native species. The infestation in southeast Queensland started from an illegal breeding facility that was detected in 2004. Rest are a really beautiful little baby turtle that turns aggressive when they get older, which has led people to dumping them. To eradicate the known population, we are conducting extensive camera monitoring using basking platforms. These platforms have a camera that is activated by movement. The platforms exploit the turtle's need to bask, and the camera takes images of anything that uses the platform. These platforms have been very successful and have been used extensively throughout the project. We also do eDNA testing of the water, where we take samples of the water and are able to tell if the slider turtle DNA is in it. This proves presence or absence. We have also built a containment barrier fence, and we're conducting extensive trapping programs and working closely with the New South Wales DPI, who also have red-eared slider turtles. We've commenced a research project to greater understand the biology of rest to enable us to eradicate them more efficiently. The images in this slide show the floating basking platform and a photo captured by the camera. So we work closely with stakeholders from state departments, local governments, NRM groups, land care groups, community groups, Indigenous groups, the list goes on. Passive surveillance is an essential part of eradication, educating people like you to be on the lookout for specific invasive species. We need to work together for the prevention, early detection and eradication of high priority invasive species to protect our beautiful state. You can find out a lot more on our website, which has detailed fact sheets on all the species that you've seen throughout my presentation and many, many more. And if you do find something you think shouldn't be there, please call us on 13 25 23. Questions? I'll be hanging around for most of the day, so please do come up and have a chat.
Thank you very much. So question we have here is, what is involved in preventing or stopping garden centres from selling threatening invasive species like Mexican bean tree?
Okay, so the importation of things from other countries by the nursery industry is controlled by the federal government, and they do very thorough risk assessments on each species before they're allowed to introduce them. And the nursery industry is fantastic. They know all the plants that they're not allowed to have and certainly don't ever sell them. No? All right. That's okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, so
the question is whether or not Brazilian pepper tree is on any of the declared lists.
Is that the same as broadleaf pepper? I'm not sure. There's so many different species that are restricted. Local government manages most of the manages restricted species, so it would be a good idea to contact the council. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much.